Hello and good morning, everyone. So this is your daily dose of current affairs. Welcome to the BullDose video series, in which we are discussing the current affairs of the day every day. So I hope you have been following us. And if you haven't been, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so that every day when we post this video, you are there to watch it. So let's see what important things have happened. So the topics that we'll be covering today are Smart Policing Index 2021. So this is the index that has been released. So we'll see who releases this index and which states are at the top, which states are at the bottom. In the second news, we'll see that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has handed over the light combat helicopters to the Indian Air Force. In the third news, the Small Industries Development Bank of India and Google has tied up to support the micro, small and medium enterprises in India. Then we'll discuss that two famous film personalities from India. Let's see who those personalities are. They have been given the Film Personalities of the Year Award 2021. And finally, the United States of America is going to tap into its strategic petroleum reserves to keep a check on the rising crude oil prices in the world. So let us see all these news one by one. Firstly, the Smart Policing Index. So Smart Policing Index, as the name itself suggests, it is a nationwide survey that is conducted by Indian Police Foundation. So Indian Police Foundation is basically a type of civil society organization that includes the representatives from armed forces, ex-servicemen, civilians, etc. So they conduct a survey all over the India, and they try to find out how smart the police of every state is. Now, since police and law and order is a state subject, so police is counted on their efficiency and on their smartness state by state. And the states that are at the bottom are Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. These two states have scored the lowest marks in the Smart Policing Index. So what is smart policing basically? This idea was given by Prime Minister Modi in the 2014 conference of DGPs of police. So every year there is a conference of Director Generals of Police. And there in 2014, Prime Minister Modi had given this idea that a survey should be conducted to find out which state police is performing the best and which is performing the worst, so that there is some course correction and it can be improved. So what is actually SMART? SMART is an acronym, SMART, where S stands for strict and sensitive. So a police force that is strict against the crime as well as sensitive to the civilians. M stands for modern and mobile. So modern means it should be technologically, more modern, and it should be mobile. That means the mobility of the force should be very high, able to move from one place to another at a quick pace. A stands for alert and accountable. So alert, so that the crimes can be tracked and brought down easily. And accountable means that there should not be any anarchy in police. It should be accountable. And R stands for reliable and responsive. And T stands for technology savvy and trained. So this was the acronym coined at the 2014 DGP's conference. And this is what smart policing is, it is judged on these parameters. So this is Smart Policing Index. And in this, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh are at the bottom. So this is what the news is. In the next news, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has handed over light combat helicopters to the Indian Air Force Chief. So as you can see in the picture, these are the light combat helicopters, LCH, that have been manufactured by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. And if you can see it clearly on the helicopter, you will see a small mark of HAL, that is Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, which is the public sector defense manufacturing enterprise. And these helicopters have been handed over to Air Force Chief Marshal Vivek Ram Chaudhary. So these helicopters are very advanced. They have stealth features and they have good combat capability. And this is the only attack helicopter that can land and take off at an altitude of 5,000 meters with a considerable load of weapons and fuel. So how is this particular feature important? Because India has deployed some of these helicopters and is going to deploy some of these helicopters in the eastern Ladakh area. So in eastern Ladakh, the altitude is very high. It is on an average 5,000 to 6,000 meters above the mean sea level. So the deployment of these helicopters is going to strategically help India in maintaining and strengthening its position across the India-China border. So that is the importance of this helicopter being delivered at this point in time. It's going to help Indian Army a lot in tackling its crisis with China. Next, SIDB and Google tie up to support MSMEs. So Small Industries Development Bank of India and Google have entered into a partnership to support micro, small, and medium enterprises. First of all, we should know what are micro, small, and medium enterprises. Basically, very small businesses that have investment up to a particular limit or their turnover up to a particular limit are categorized as micro, small, and medium enterprises. For example, those enterprises that have a turnover up to 10 crore rupees are categorized as micro enterprises. Then those enterprises that have a turnover more than 10 crores but less than 50 crores are small enterprises. And those that have a turnover above 50 crore rupees but less than 100 crore rupees are categorized as medium enterprises. So micro, small, and medium enterprises. So Small Industries Development Bank of India and Google India Private Limited, that basically means that banking and technology have come together. So they have launched a pilot project for a social impact lending program. Now, social impact means that if there is a disruption like COVID-19, or if something other has happened, so the adverse impact of that can be really severe. So in such times, the MSMEs were some of the worst sufferers because they do not have much capital at their back to support during the bad times. And that's why this lending program has been started, in which the SIDB will provide financial assistance of up to 1 crore rupees at subsidized interest rates, so that these enterprises can revive themselves. It is a one-of-a-kind program. There is no other example of any such program. And it has been launched, as I told you, as a crisis response to COVID-19 to reinvigorate the MSME sector in India. So this is what it is. Next up, the film personalities of the year 2021. So two film personalities have been awarded the Film Personalities of the Year Award 2021 at the International Film Festival of India, or IIFT. So one is actor and BJP leader Hema Malini, and second is Prasoon Joshi, who has written so many beautiful songs. So he's a lyricist as well as the former chief of Central Board of Film Certification. So the censor board, as we popularly call it, or Central Board of Film Certification, was headed by Prasoon Joshi, and he's also a very famous lyricist. So these two have been felicitated with the Indian Film Personality of the Year Award at the International Film Festival of India 2021. And this film festival takes place every year in the state of Goa. Now, why have these two been felicitated? Because of their contributions to the Indian cinema spread over so many decades. Both of them have been a part of Indian cinema for more than 4 decades now. More than 40 years they have been part of Indian cinema. And they have, in their respective capacities, enthralled the Indian audience with their talent. That's why they are chosen for this award. And finally, United States of America has decided to use its strategic petroleum reserve to check the rising oil prices. So first of all, we should understand what is a strategic petroleum reserve. As the term itself suggests, it is a reserve of petroleum with a particular country. So many countries around the world, they maintain large tanks or caverns in which they store millions of barrels of crude oil, so that in case of any supply disruption due to either a war or a natural calamity or COVID-like situation, when the supply lines get disrupted, so that the supply of oil, even if it gets disrupted, it should not cause a lot of loss to the economy of a country, because crude oil is something which is the basis of the entire transportation sector in a country. And that's why a reserve needs to be created, especially in a country like India, where more than 80 to 85% of our domestic petroleum needs are met through imports. So we'll talk about India a minute later. First of all, let's see why USA is tapping into its strategic petroleum reserve. Basically, in 2022, a few months from now, midterm elections are due in United States of America. We know that president has been already elected, Mr. Joe Biden, but midterm election means that in USA, the parliamentary elections are going to be held. So the House of Representatives is going to be elected. So in the wake of that, the president, Joe Biden, does not want to antagonize the voters, and he has decided to reduce the prices of oil. So he's trying to use the strategic petroleum reserves because they were purchased at an earlier date and they are at a cheaper cost than now. And China and India are also expected to do the same thing. Now, OPEC is an organization of petroleum exporting countries that regulates most of the petroleum production in the world. So they were urged that you kindly reduce your production so that the prices, you kindly increase your production so that the crude oil prices can come down a bit. But OPEC refused to do so. And as a result, now USA is going to take the action itself. It's going to release a lot of its oil that it has held in the strategic petroleum reserves. And as a result, the crude oil prices will come down. So strategic petroleum reserves are the huge stockpiles of crude oil that can be used in any crisis situation. It was first started in 1973 in the US after the OPEC oil crisis. A similar type of crisis was faced in 1973. And after that, US realized, and in fact, the entire world realized, that we should keep some of the petroleum always in stock. In fact, India is also building this reserve. We'll see in detail. So according to an agreement on International Energy Program, each IEA country, that is each member of International Energy Agency, has an obligation to hold emergency stocks equivalent to 90 days of net oil imports. That means on India also, it is compulsory that India should maintain 90 days equivalent of petroleum reserves. And if we talk about the biggest petroleum reserves, Japan has the largest. On the second comes US, and on the third comes China. And India also is not very far behind. So if we talk about India, you see this map very clearly. So we have strategic petroleum reserves in places like Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh, then in Mangalore in Karnataka, and Padur again in Karnataka. So these were the strategic petroleum reserves that were created in the first phase, and they are functioning since 2019. In the second phase, 2 more strategic petroleum reserves were made, one in Chandikhol in Odisha, and second again in Padur in Karnataka. Also, many more such storage spaces are going to come up, which are going to increase India's, you can say, storage of crude petroleum up to 90 days of limit. Originally, or even right now, 65 to 70 days worth of petroleum is already stored in the refineries that India has. So many refineries, so crude oil is already stored there. But that 30 days of gap is going to be filled by these strategic petroleum reserves. So right now, the capacity of strategic petroleum reserves is equivalent to 10 days of reserves. And after the construction of these new SPRs, India's total capacity is going to jump 22 to 23 days. So once that is achieved, after that, we have already the reserves in the refineries. So if we combine them both, we will have 87 to 88 days worth of crude oil in the strategic petroleum reserves and refineries combined. So that will be fairly close to achieving the target of 90 days worth of oil imports. So that is the strategic petroleum reserve. Why USA is using it? and how India can also use the reserve to reduce the crude oil prices if the prices keep on rising. So that is it that we had to discuss for today. I hope you liked the session. I hope you understood all the 5 important news that we had to discuss. That is it for today. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so that you get the notification of these videos every day sharp at 11 a.m. Thank you so much and have a nice day.